Hello, everyone, and hello to everyone on Zoom. Welcome to the UCSF Academic Senate 2025 Distinguished Faculty Award Ceremony. My name is Sonam Prakash. I'm a clinical professor of hematopathology in lab medicine. I am also a member on the Committee on Academic Personnel, and this year I chaired the Committee for Distinction in Teaching Award. I will be co-hosting with my colleague, Dr. Mimi Margareton, and she will present the Distinction in Mentoring Awards. The Academic Senate Distinguished Faculty Awards recognize exceptional mentoring and teaching by UCSF faculty. So today we will start with the Distinction in Teaching Awards, and then we'll present the Distinction in Mentoring Awards. The Distinction in Teaching Award was established in 1958 and annually recognizes exceptional Senate faculty members who have shown distinction in teaching. The Spring 2025 recipient of the Academic Senate Distinction in Teaching Award for faculty at UCSF for 5 years or fewer is Dr. Jaya Mallidi. Dr. Mallidi is an associate clinical professor in cardiology. The recipient of the Distinction in Teaching Award for faculty at UCSF for over 5 years is Dr. Elizabeth Joyce. Dr. Joyce is an adjunct professor in the Department of Microbiology and Immunology in the School of Medicine, and also has a joint appointment in the Department of Cell and Tissue Biology in the School of Dentistry. The Academic Senate and the Committee on Academic Personnel began conferring the Distinction in Mentoring Awards in 2009 to recognize and celebrate exceptional mentoring by faculty to faculty and faculty to clinical and postdoctoral fellows. The recipient of the 2025 Academic Senate Distinction in Mentoring Award for faculty at the rank of Associate Professor is Dr. Marissa Raymond Flesh. She's an Associate Professor in the Philip R. Lee Institute for Health Policy Studies and the Division of Adolescent and Young Adult Medicine within the Department of Pediatrics. The recipient for the Academic Senate Distinction in Mentoring Award for faculty at the rank of Full Professor is Dr. Lawrence Huang. Dr. Huang is a professor of medicine in the Division of Pulmonary Critical Care, Allergy and Sleep Medicine, and the Division of HIV, Infectious Diseases and Global Medicine. A big congratulations to our winners. We will start with the first award category, Distinction in Teaching. So the winners of the Distinction in Teaching Awards are selected by a review committee chaired by a member of CAP and comprises 1 full professor and 1 student from each of the 4 schools. The committee agreed that all the nominees for the Distinction in Teaching Award were really outstanding. So winning this award is really a great honor. I'm pleased to introduce this year's winners and their nominators. First, I would like to introduce Dr. Mary Gray and Dr. Peter Gans, the nominators of Dr. Jaya Mallidi. Dr. Gray is a professor of clinical medicine and the medical director for cardiology clinical services at San Francisco General Hospital. Dr. Gans is a professor of medicine and director of the Center of Excellence in Vascular Research at San Francisco General Hospital. I would like to invite Dr. Gray to introduce Dr. Mallidi.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm Mary Gray, Interim Chief of the UCSF Division of Cardiology at San Francisco General Hospital. It's an honor to join people who prioritize teaching and introduce Dr. Jaya Mallidi, recipient of the Academic Senate Distinction in Teaching Award for faculty at UCSF 5 years or fewer. Dr. Mallidi joined UCSF 4 years ago after a distinguished career as an interventional cardiologist or IC, in private practice. This slide is from Jaya's Interventional Crossroads column in Medscape, where she creates incisive opinion pieces on a range of topics, from mechanical circulatory support to moral courage during COVID-19. We immediately recognized Dr. Mallidi's stellar qualifications as clinician and thinker, but she was indeed at a career crossroads. Jaya had decided to move from the IC world to non-invasive care of patients with heart disease. Where would Jaya Mallidi's professional passions reside at UCSF and San Francisco General Hospital? Let's listen to UCSF medicine residents and cardiology fellows for answers. Dr. Mallidi's chalk talks are legendarily succinct and tailored to trainee level. Clinical reasoning at the bedside is nuanced, framing the evidence around the patient in front of her. Jaya distills complex pathophysiology, from atrial fibrillation to cardiogenic shock, into digestible lessons while fostering curiosity and critical thinking, a testament to teaching ability. It is so easy to learn from Dr. Mallidi because she is constantly pausing to ensure all learners understand and feel included. Additional feedback. I was able to apply learning we received on rounds directly to patient care, which helped to reinforce Dr. Mallidi's teaching. Dr. Mallidi's commitment to health equity and harm reduction in patients planning to self-direct their discharges was another strength, providing attributes for me to emulate going forward. Jaya makes her expectations very clear, which we appreciated. I hope to emulate Dr. Mallidi's style in my future career. Let's take a step back and consider the Olympics. The best coaches take the best athletes somewhere they couldn't go alone. Jaya Mallidi takes amazing UCSF learners somewhere they can't go alone. We are faster, higher, stronger, Citius, Altius, Fortius because of her. Dr. Mallidi merits the Academic Senate Distinction in Teaching Award because she opens our minds. Jaya expects us to share new knowledge, make wise decisions, and strive always to relieve suffering. Let's hear from Rebecca Berman, director of the UCSF Internal Medicine Residency Program, who invariably speaks the truth. UCSF medicine residents vote for only a handful of teaching awards annually across more than 800 talented faculty in our department. Jaya won the 2023 Patricia Cornett Subspecialty Faculty Teaching Award and 2024 Floyd Rector Award for Excellence in Teaching. I am blown away by the level of enthusiasm amongst our trainees for Dr. Mallidi's teaching. I say with confidence, she is a star amongst stars. So I say, bravo, Jaya Mallidi. Well done. On behalf of your many fans, please share your story.
Mary, thank you so much for that kind introduction. I also thank the members of the selection committee for choosing me. I'm so deeply honored and have so much gratitude and humbled to receive this award today. For the next 15 minutes, I'll be talking a little bit about my journey, about my mentors and teachers, what they taught me, and then answer the specific questions from the committee members to the DIT awardees. So I was born and brought up in India. I was actually born in this city of Visakhapatnam, a coastal city by the Bay of Bengal. The landscape, as you can see here, is somewhat similar to San Francisco with the hills and the ocean, but it is super hot and humid. And of course, there's no fog there at all. My first teacher was my granddad. My granddad was a very beloved physics teacher in our community. He had this uncanny ability to simplify very complex topics. He often personified inanimate objects. For example, when he was teaching me chemistry and talking about covalent bonds, he would think of the atoms as best friends and buddies sharing their electrons. So that made learning really fun. He was my teacher right from kindergarten all the way up to 10th grade. And here is my grandmom. She was a remarkable lady in her own right. She raised 6 kids, my mom, and all my 5 uncles. All of them are physicians. My sister and me often fondly reminiscence those hot Indian summer days with air that was filled with the aroma of like mangoes and spices from my grandmom's kitchen. And we were running around my grandfather, learning periodic table, Newton's laws, geometry, and algebra. Learning was so easy and fun with my granddad. What I am today, I owe it to him. So thank you, granddad, for everything that you taught me and what I am today. Regarding my parents, my dad was an orthopedic surgeon. What I learned from my dad is to be extraordinarily meticulous in preparing and planning. Oftentimes after dinner, I would find my dad with his head buried in this big fat orthopedic textbooks. I asked him, studying every day, you're already a surgeon. And this is what he told me, Jaya, remember, the practice of medicine or surgery is a lifelong learning experience. Make it a habit to read and learn every single day. Unfortunately, we lost my dad when I was in second year of medical school. I was 18 at that time. Life at that time was almost like being on a sail without a guide, without a compass. But my mom, a gynecologist, still practicing in India to this date, since then has been this beacon of strength, courage, and resilience to me. My dad's last words to us in Telugu, my native language, is Dhairye Sahase Lakshmi. That means your bravery and your courage is your wealth. These words have been with me in my heart that I always carry for the last 23 years. The influence that my dad and my granddad have on my teaching style is so profound that it's not a coincidence that my sister, Srivalisha Mallidi, also won the Undergraduate Teaching Excellence Award for 2025 for the entire Tufts Schools of Art, Sciences, and Engineering, a remarkable feat, and I'm so very proud of her. But for her, the most joy comes from teaching my 14-year-old niece, Sahanvi, algebra and math, just like how my granddad taught us. I went on to do medical school in India in Jipmer. Jipmer is one of the top medical schools in India. It had a sprawling campus of 195 acres and 2,000 odd beds. In India, in medical school, there is a lot of focus and emphasis on physical examination. I was very fortunate to learn from amazing clinicians like Dr. R.P. Swaminathan, who really modeled bedside clinical teaching. Even to this day, when I see a patient with mitral stenosis, his voice comes in my head, that mid-diastolic rumble, low-pitched, and you always have to put the patient in the left lateral position. So medical school was fun, and it was really focused on history taking and physical examination back home in India. I then traveled halfway across the globe to do my master's in health sciences at Bloomberg School of Public Health. Yes, this was my first, this was my first snow that I ever saw. And that winter in Baltimore was brutal. This is Dr. Deborah Roter. She is very famous for doctor-patient communications. She was not only my mentor, but a remarkably kind human being. In fact, my first Thanksgiving in US was with her family in Baltimore. I then did my internal medicine residency, cardiology fellowship, as well as interventional fellowship at Bay State Medical Center. Bay State had a very unique model where interns were called as learners. The second-year residents were called as managers, and the third-year residents were called as teachers. The kind of framework and gradual approach helped me in honing my teaching skills. Dr. Michael Rothberg was my clinical as well as research mentor during my residency. He was instrumental in teaching me about critical appraisal of literature, as well as in understanding how to apply evidence-based medicine to patient care. Dr. Amir Lotfi here is my clinical mentor, as well as research mentor, all through my cardiology as well as interventional cardiology. He is a remarkable physician, well loved by all the fellows for his excellent clinical acumen, compassionate bedside manners, and his encyclopedic knowledge of all the cardiology trials. But the one thing that he really taught me is to value building relationship with your trainees. And the other thing that he taught me is to always deeply care about the trainee well-being. I remember that day still when I was in the cath lab, blew up a balloon and boom, there was contrast extravasation and there was a coronary perforation. On that fateful day, both the patient and I survived. But that night when I was in the cafeteria having my dinner late, Dr. Lotfi walked in. I thought he was going to ask me, how's the patient doing? But instead, he sat down and said, how are you doing, Jaya? That's it. Tears rolled down my eyes. And since then, he's been my go-to person for all my professional conundrums and a lifelong mentor for me. After Bay State, I practiced interventional cardiology in Santa Rosa for about 5 years. And due to some unexpected circumstances, predominantly related to my health, I decided to transition to general cardiology. And then I joined San Francisco General Hospital in 2021. Dr. Priscilla Hsu was then the chief of cardiology at San Francisco General. I immensely thank her for believing in me and for providing all the leadership opportunities that I have today. San Francisco General rotation, SF cards rotation that we call it as, is consistently ranked as the best rotation in internal medicine residency at UCSF, even before I joined. The culture of teaching at least 10 to 15 minutes before the rounds start every day has been set by teachers like Dr. Nora Goldschlager, Binan Fan, both of whom actually won this distinction award. Of note, I would also like to thank all my current colleagues at San Francisco General to continue this spirit of teaching and making that an important part of the culture and residency, as well as cardiology fellowship program at San Francisco General Hospital. And now moving on to the specific questions. This is a cartoon sketch that was done of me teaching by one of our residents, Constance Wu. So the first question here is, what are your strengths that have led you to become a distinguished teacher? I don't have a specific magic formula, but as I reflected on all the feedback that I got, these are some of the things that I think I do in order to create a positive learning environment. When I am on service, I make sure to prepare, plan, and set very clear expectations about the goals of the rotation, as well as about the structure of rounds. I come in very early and often see the patients who are admitted overnight, even before the rounds start, so that I mentally prepare to at least have 1 or 2 teaching points for every new patient presentation. Also, unless there is a sick patient, I often start my day with a simple chalk talk, focusing on some patient topic based upon what patients we have. And during those chalk talk, I try to simplify complex cardiology concepts like cardiogenic shock or wide complex tachyarrhythmias into easily digestible, simple format and provide the trainees with a framework to think about patients critically as well as the management. I would say in clinical learning environment, the most important thing is efficiency and time management. Nobody likes if you run the rounds beyond 12 o'clock. Everybody wants to have their lunch in time. But to be able to be efficient, as well as provide adequate patient care, provide adequate supervision, as well as autonomy, it's extremely difficult and challenging. That's where it takes time and effort, and you have to prepare and set clear expectations ahead of time. I also spend time and effort in cultivating a team spirit and embrace the notion of we. Oftentimes, I would say to the residents, how are we thinking about this problem rather than how are you thinking? Finally, I also believe that as clinical educators, we should set and be a role model for values like compassion, empathy, spending time with patients and their families, not hesitating to come in the middle of the night to see a sick patient, and always be available. I think these are some of the intangible things that trainees hold on to and emulate in their future careers. For me, a teacher is somebody who inspires. And so the greatest joy comes when the residents, after finishing the rotation with me, want to pursue cardiology. Teaching is an iterative process. So I'm always constantly working on improving my teaching skills. Currently, I'm working on giving appropriate and timely feedback to the residents when they're working with me. As such, I'm currently participating in a clinical teaching workshop by the Department of Medicine by Doctors Brad Monash and Brad Sharp. It's an excellent teaching workshop where they go through several topics related to clinical teaching environment and also provide frameworks to analyze teaching. For anybody interested in enhancing their teaching skill sets, I would strongly encourage this workshop. The next question is about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Most of my teaching and clinical work is at San Francisco General Hospital. As you all know, the General Hospital predominantly serves vulnerable risk population. So the ideals of DEI are integrated deeply into the work culture at ZSFG on an everyday basis. On rounds, I emphasize the impact of social determinants of health on patient outcomes and also make sure to discuss about the health inequities that are present in our society. I also strive to foster a sense of belonging by building trusting relationship with the trainees and creating an inclusive learning environment so that they feel heard, they feel valued, and they feel respected. Moving on to the challenges, I'm going to first talk a little bit of the challenges as a clinician educator that we have always faced, are still facing, and will be facing in the future. That is finding this perfect balance between trainee well-being and essential rigorous training that is important for achieving excellence. In the last year or so, the 24-hour call at the General Hospital for internal medicine residents is now completely off. Our post-call time is now off for our fellows who were taking in-house call. As we were making this decision, we had to very carefully consider so as not to compromise our commitment to excellence in learning as well as in patient care. I encourage you all to read this amazingly well-written and thoughtful article in NEJM where Lisa Rosenbaum describes about distinguishing what is necessary and what is unnecessary discomfort in training. An example would be something like a resident who has taken care of a sick patient all through the night has stayed an additional 30 minutes on the rounds instead of leaving or handing over the care. That in my mind, I would not escalate it to violation of work hour rules. So it is important to distinguish that there is necessary discomfort in training, and that sort of emotional maturity is what we need to develop in our trainees because they are going to be our future educators. The next challenge that we are going to be facing is balancing technology or artificial intelligence with humanism in medicine. Students are going to be using digital tools very often. And then in this era of using digital tools and AI, how do we judge their competence? How do we teach them about patient-centered care? How do we teach them clinical acumen and clinical judgment? In the burgeoning world of AI, I do think our precious asset is our compassion and our ability to care about each other. And these are the things that we have to transfer to our trainees. Of course, all is not bleak with AI. I do believe that AI is going to be transformational and provide an exceptional educational platform for personalized educational experiences for our trainees and real-time feedback, and they can do their learning at their own pace. So I'm hopeful that in the future, we'll be able to integrate AI seamlessly into education as well as into academia without losing our humanistic values. So finally, I would like to thank my nominators, Dr. Gray, whom you all met, as well as Dr. Gans, for believing in me, for supporting me, and for taking time to contact everyone listed here for writing amazing letters of support. Thank you all for writing all the letters and for your support. In addition, I would like to thank all the students, residents, and fellows who worked with me over the last 4 years and took time to fill out all their MedHub evaluations. I think I almost have more than 150 evaluations at this time. And finally, I would like to thank my husband, Vinay Reddy. He is watching this on Zoom. He's not here today, but he's been my pillar of strength for the last 10 plus years. So thank you, Vinay, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mallidi. We have a certificate for you from the Academic Senate in recognition of your outstanding achievement in teaching.
Thank you so
again.
much. Thank you all.
Next, I want to introduce Dr. Barbie Klein. Dr. Barbie Klein is an associate professor with joint appointments in the Department of Anatomy in the School of Medicine and the Department of Cell and Tissue Biology in the School of Dentistry. She is the co-director of the Anatomy Learning Center and is the faculty advisor for the Willed Body Program at UCSF. She is also a previous winner of the Distinction in Teaching Award. Dr. Klein is the nominator for Dr. Elizabeth Joyce. Dr. Klein.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. First, I would like to thank the Academic Senate and the committees for their service in recognizing our outstanding educators. And I'd also like to extend a special thank you to Liz Greenwood for your organization and patience with my many inquiries. I am absolutely thrilled to have nominated and now to be introducing Dr. Elizabeth Joyce, who was selected as the recipient for this Distinction in Teaching Award. It's hard to believe that I met Elizabeth only 4 years ago when we were asked to co-direct 2 very large, very complex biomedical science courses in the School of Dentistry. I remember feeling very nervous to meet her, but within the first few minutes of talking with her in those little Zoom boxes, I felt instantly assured in our task. Elizabeth's expertise in curriculum development and innovation is unparalleled. She engages and empowers students to succeed in their education and to develop an inquiry habit of mind by making foundational science content accessible to students across professions and academic levels. As one student stated, I have never seen a professor show so much passion and support to their students through not just words, but action. She notices a problem, actively communicates with us about how she can help, and always follows through. Within the first few weeks of knowing Elizabeth, I knew I wanted to pop the question. I was nervous. I waited until the right time, the right place. I had my speech prepared. I finally worked up the nerves. I realize now this does sound like a proposal, but I finally asked her, Elizabeth, will you please be my mentor? She said yes. I was elated, on cloud 9. In addition to her excellence in teaching, she is an outstanding mentor and advisor. Elizabeth is the faculty advisor for the UCSF Bridges Student Organization, which aims to support non-traditional pre-dental students, such as community college transfer students, post-baccalaureate students, and international students, among others. Under Elizabeth's guidance, this organization has exponentially grown and positively impacted multitudes of learners through their outreach efforts, mentorship program, and advising. The student founder of the organization stated that Dr. Joyce has profoundly impacted each stage of my academic and personal growth at UCSF, empowering me to find confidence in myself in academic settings. Her expertise was invaluable to me navigating educational leadership. Elizabeth exemplifies what UCSF strives for: equitable education, compassionate instruction, a desire to continue advancing knowledge in our learners. She embodies our pride values and significantly enhances our mission. Some may even call her enthusiasm infectious. Please help me welcome and congratulate Elizabeth on this well-deserved recognition.
Wow, that's hard to move on from that, but we'll give it our best shot. So I'd like to first start off by saying how grateful I am that the UCSF Academic Senate has such a long-standing tradition of recognizing truly outstanding contributions to education and mentoring. These are critical pillars supporting the core missions of UCSF. And UCSF boasts many exceptional educators, and I know full well that there are many other faculty who are very deserving of this award. So I'm truly honored and very grateful to be one of this year's recipients. In preparation for today, I kept coming back to this quote and my Bitmoji, my alter ego. So I want to just pause for a moment to let you just take a look at this. So all of us come from someplace with a set of experiences that influence how we see the world and who we become and who we will become through our future experiences. These experiences don't have to define us, but we can neither ignore nor change our own experiences. The best we can do is to use them to help us make informed decisions about how we move forward in the world. I have been very fortunate. My life experiences have been, on balance, really positive. I have a loving family. I've experienced very little personal trauma or tragedy. My life has been full and mostly pretty happy. But this is not true for everyone, including our learners. I tried very hard to keep this front of mind because everyone's experiences are real, valid, formative, and not always apparent to us on the outside. And they have real implications. They shape how we show up in a classroom, how we respond to feedback, how we manage stress, and how we see ourselves as learners and burgeoning professionals. I think as educators, one of the most powerful things we can do is recognize and honor these collective experiences, to meet learners where they're at, not where our preconceived notions about where they ought to be at. When we meet them where they are, we provide them with space for their growth and for them to become competent, caring professionals. So let me tell you a little bit about my own experiences and how they shaped my journey. I grew up outside of Buffalo, New York, the eldest of 3 children. There's my mom and dad, and my brothers, my brother Tim sitting next to me, and my youngest brother Tom, and my one of my very oldest and dearest friends, Alicia, who is like a sister to me. So she spent a lot of time at our house, and she seems to be always there when I'm at home. Visiting my family, which is wonderful. So our household really valued education. And in fact, there were many people in my family who are educators, including my mother, who was for many years a professor of psychiatric nursing, and my youngest brother, Tom, who was a marvelous kindergarten teacher. I'm also grateful for the family that I married into. My husband, Stephen, my incredible in-laws, Marcia and Robert, and our 2 really wonderful, amazing children, Owen and Hannah. And of course, our cat, Percy, who is kind of like a dog and follows me everywhere. I went to public school from kindergarten through college and had some really wonderful teachers. One of the best teachers I've ever had, bar none, is Mary Husted, my 6th grade teacher. She's become a good friend over the last 47 years, and I'm going to just ask you right now to not do that math. So what made her such a good teacher? She sparked our curiosity and made the world feel worthy of exploring. Her lessons were framed in ways that made even our sixth grade minds lean in with interest. So curiosity, or the way or how things happen, motivated me from a really early age to learn about things that interested in me. And eventually I developed an interest in science and biology, and particularly microbiology. So I went to Cornell University, go Aggies, to study microbiology. And after a circuitous path, I eventually went to graduate school at Tufts Medical School, which is very well represented in these talks so far, where I studied with Andrew Wright, followed by a postdoc at Stanford University with Stanley Falco. And throughout my training, I actively sought out teaching opportunities, whether it was TAing labs or co-designing a 6-week summer prep course for incoming professional students and leading review sessions. And these experiences were really formative for me. Teaching pushed me to develop a deeper, more comprehensive understanding of the material. I often felt like I didn't fully grasp a concept unless I had to explain it to somebody else. Through these experiences, I realized that teaching would be a central focus of my professional career. In 2005, I had this wonderful opportunity to be a visiting professor at Swarthmore College, a small liberal arts college where I taught 2 courses. I was mentored by Elizabeth Fallon, a gifted scientist and consummate educator. And this experience really showed me that curiosity alone is not enough to be a great educator. I needed to deepen my content knowledge, expand my teaching skills, and begin to truly see myself as an educator, both in mindset and in practice, to effectively impact not just my learning, but that of our students. After returning to Stanford and spending a few years on the job market, my dream job at UCSF opened up. I was so excited and felt really ready. But after signing on the dotted line and learning what I was actually tasked to do, it quickly became clear to me that I still had a lot to learn, not just about the content that's best suited for our professional students, but also how to effectively teach adult learners. As the weight of what I needed to do sunk in, the idea of walking into a classroom of professional students was really daunting. I came into this thinking that my training had prepared me for this moment and that I knew what I had to do and how to do it. But the reality of this new situation didn't align directly with my experience. And what I'll tell you is that when you find yourself in a place of near total ignorance and desperation, that's exactly when the point that you can realize that you can still be learning. So I came to see that all my preparation that I had done wasn't wasted. It was building a mindset. It gave me a foundation to approach new challenges with curiosity, a lot of humility, and intention. And luckily for me, I had incredible colleagues that were collaborative, supportive, kind, highly accomplished educators themselves. There have been many, many people that I can't possibly name, all of whom today, that have shown up for me over the past 14 years. But I did want to acknowledge these people who really have made sustained investment in my success. Mark Ansel is a great collaborator and worked with me early on to develop new active learning immunology labs, even as I was learning basic immunology here at UCSF for the first time. Dr. Warren Levinston has been my mentor ever since I joined the faculty here. Dr. Marika Krutering, she's so generous with her time and support, and her creativity has benefited me and many of our learners so very much. Linda Brynan and more recently Rupa Tuwan, both remarkable educators who, alongside with Marika, lead the charge in teaching pharmacology to our dental students, as well as other students and the medical and pharmacy students. They have just been an absolute delight to work with. And finally, Dr. Michael McMaster, who has been a huge advocate for me and a mentor as well in the School of Dentistry. So as I gained experience and my confidence grew and my overall effectiveness improved, I think, it was in large part because I learned that it wasn't about me. At the center of this learning, it was about our learners, about our students. So I teach in the schools of medicine, dentistry, and pharmacy, and really understanding what it is that each cohort needs to be able to do with the content that we deliver to them, being able to determine which learning strategies work best to achieve their goals. And really, very importantly, being able to devise assessments that allow students to demonstrate what they learned, not just to us, but also to themselves. These are some of the most important things that I do to keep our learners at the center of this process. A pivotal experience in my growth was participating in the Teaching Scholars Program, led at the time by the formidable Pat O'Sullivan. Her unwavering commitment to education and her ability to challenge us with warmth and encouragement helped me illuminate for me the many unknown unknowns when it comes to learning, scholarship, and educational research. The Center for Faculty Educators has many wonderful faculty development workshops. I strongly urge people to take advantage of this, that I participated in, were really formative for my training, and that I now help facilitate. And being inducted into the Academy of Medical Educators a few years ago has provided a tremendous community of support for not just me, but so many of our educators here at UCSF. Okay, Dr. Klein. I want to take a moment to thank Dr. Barbie Klein for nominating me for this award. It takes time and care to gather letters from faculty and learners and assemble this application, and she does 1,000 things all very well, and I know it takes a lot of time, and so I'm very deeply grateful for this. I think we often think of mentors as those who are more senior or maybe more experienced, but in this case, I found myself unexpectedly delighted as we got to know each other and agreed to co-direct the basic science curriculum in the School of Dentistry. Barbie is creative. Her thoughtful approach to designing collaborative, inclusive learning experiences and her deep commitment to teaching reminded me of why I love this work so very much. Her energy rekindled this excitement for me, and working with her has been a joyful reminder of how energizing it can be to work with someone who shares your passions and yet can offer new and different ways of thinking about things. Great ideas and goals are very important, but if you don't have a plan, or importantly, competent and caring people to help usher those ideas into reality, then they just remain ideas, unseen in the world. I've had the great fortune of having colleagues that appeared exactly when I needed them. Katya Polovina joined UCSF shortly after I arrived, and she had this amazing spatial capabilities and basically designed our new microbiology teaching lab, which has been used by many different groups of students across schools and at UCSF and very well received. Daryl Dempis joined me when Katya left, and he is so incredibly organized, and he expertly supports hundreds of students who take our lab courses each year with professionalism, a student-centric approach, and a deep commitment to learning. Paul Laffoon, and before him, Amber Cobbett and Jonathan Wilson, curates our course management systems. He ensures that everything runs smoothly and effectively. But what makes Paul truly exceptional is his approachable and responsive student-facing communication skills. And of course, I'd like to really acknowledge all of our learners. I'm only showing one picture here because these are the folks that we do all this work in service of. So this one picture here that I'm showing is our first year dental students at their white coat ceremony this year. They're so excited at these, as they launch themselves into this wonderful profession. All of the cohorts of students that I work with approach their learning and training with such a high level of rigor and dedication. It is truly inspirational to be working with them. So over the past 14 years, my training and experience as an educator, supported by the guidance of very many people, have helped me to build expertise in my field. But beyond teaching facts, I've really come to appreciate that seasoned educators offer something more: the ability to help students connect ideas, see patterns, and apply their knowledge in new, meaningful ways, a sort of wisdom. Teaching is indeed a continuous learning experience, and with ongoing reflection and feedback, I hope to continue growing and engaging learners to help them make connections for themselves and to give them agency over their own learning. This opportunity today for self-reflection, of which I've done a lot over the past week, brings up a few core lessons for me. And to circle back to the beginning of my remarks, our learners are bright, capable, and come from different backgrounds and diverse experiences. These enrich the learning environment, not threaten it. Research shows that a diverse healthcare workforce improves health outcomes and builds trust among providers and patients. We need to support all of our learners by setting clear goals, offering timely feedback, showing flexibility, and leading with empathy. We can uphold high standards while still fostering spaces where students can feel empowered to take intellectual risks. I think for me, one of the most incredible things about teaching is that learning doesn't just add up, it multiplies. When we spark curiosity and create the right environment, learners can take what we offer and just run with it and create something we never even thought of. Also, a little well-placed humor never hurts in that process. So if you'd asked me 6 months ago to forecast what to expect in the next 5 years, I would have focused on the tremendous opportunities, especially in technology and artificial intelligence, which hold tremendous potential alongside some very real risks. But today I feel compelled to speak about a more urgent concern that I have, and that is actually access to education. I never imagined that in this country, at this point in time, we'd have to defend the basic right to learn, but we do. What is happening now is not normal, and it's not okay. From the paraprofessional helping a kindergartner learn to read, to the high school history teacher showing students how the past echoes into the present, to college, graduate, and professional educators navigating politicized environments, we are all being affected. Education is being restricted, distorted, and actively attacked, and a government that fails to educate its children weakens every part of civil society, including healthcare and scientific research, as I know you all know very well. In the next 5, 10, or 15 years, we will most certainly see the effects of these disastrous decisions in our classrooms. We must support one another across the spectrum of educators from K through 12 and beyond. We need to speak up and act however we can in big and small ways, wherever we are. So I hate to be a downer, and while I'm not optimistic about the direction that this administration is going in, I am hopeful that educators in this room and those that we mentor and inspire will continue to uphold the responsibility to teach with honesty, compassion, and courage. We don't just share knowledge as educators, we shape how people think, how they engage with others, and how they care. United, I think we can protect the integrity of education and remind our students, our communities, and ourselves that truth and inclusion and justice are always worth standing up for. So I want to thank you all very much for your attention, and thank you to the Academic Senate for this really tremendous honor. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Joyce. I will now invite Dr. Mimi Margareton to present the Distinction in Mentoring Awards.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, I'm Dr. Mimi Margareton. I'm a professor of medicine and the clinical director of rheumatology at San Francisco General Hospital. And I'm a member of the Committee on Academic Personnel, and I chaired the Distinction in Mentoring Award Committee this year. So this committee is comprised of one full professor and one associate professor from each of the 4 schools. The nominees for the Distinction in Mentoring Award were all truly outstanding, and I am so pleased and happy to introduce this year's winners and their nominators. The recipient of the Academic Senate Distinction in Mentoring Award for faculty at the rank of the Associate Professor is Dr. Marissa Raymond-Fletch. She is in the Philip R. Lee Institute for Health Policy Studies and the Division of Adolescent and Young Adult Medicine within the Department of Pediatrics. Her nominator, Dr. Sarah Buckaloo, is with us to say a few words about Dr. Raymond-Fletch's outstanding contributions as a mentor. Dr. Buckaloo is a professor in the Department of Pediatrics and medical director of the UCSF Eating Disorders Program. And I think Dr. Buckaloo is on Zoom, and I can advance the slides for you.
Great, thank you so much. Good afternoon. What an honor and pleasure it is to be able to introduce Dr. Raymond Flesch as the recipient of the 2025 Distinction in Mentoring Award. I can't see my slides. I'm wondering if you could advance them.
Yes, and I'm realizing it's still on the, let's see.
Great, you can go to the next slide. So just a little bit about one back. A little bit about Dr. Raymond Flesch, who I had the opportunity to meet when she joined our Adolescent Medicine Fellowship in 2012. And even as a fellow, Marissa really excelled at mentorship. Looking back through her CV, she was a mentor right from the start. And truly demonstrated all of her exceptional skills that went on to really serve her so well as a faculty member. And we were lucky enough to have her join our faculty in 2016, where she has continued to truly excel as a scholar, including being selected as a Watson Scholar and a K Award recipient. And you can go to the next slide. In 2019, she stepped in to be the fellowship director. And when I had the opportunity to reach out to her former fellow trainees, everyone was overwhelmingly in support of this nomination. She has already been recognized for her leadership as a fellow director by the Pediatric Fellow Leadership Group in 2020. And in 2024, she was selected for the Arches program. She's continued to go on to be an exceptional investigator and has mentored countless fellows and faculty in really exciting and innovative work. And unfortunately, many of the mentees who worked closely with Marissa and supported her application or her nomination aren't able to be there in person today because they are all here in Honolulu presenting their work that Dr. Raymond Flesch successfully mentored them through. You can go to the next slide. So I put all of Dr. Raymond Flesch's letters into a word cloud, and I just wanted to comment on some of the words that really stood out to me in the next slide. And those include unwavering, potential, invaluable, impact, profound, and opportunity. And I will say, even as someone who is senior to Dr. Raymond Flesch, I appreciate the potential that she's seen in me and the significance and impact that has had on my own career. Next slide, please. And as a qualitative researcher, which was highlighted as well, I wanted to take a moment to include a few quotes from those mentees who weren't able to be there today. Next slide. So Dr. Raymond Flesch is an example of the kind of clinician scientist I wish to be and has helped me grow immeasurably as a clinician, researcher, and educator. She is approachable, caring, and patient. While I've only known her for 2 years, she's been one of the most influential and impactful mentors of my academic and professional career. Next slide. Dr. Raymond Flesch is a constant supportive force, helping us navigate new and changing roles and caring about our broader well-being inside and outside of academic medicine. She is compassionate, generous, and fiercely thoughtful. It is difficult to fully express my gratitude for her profound impact on both my career and my life. Next slide. Dr. Marissa Raymond Flesch does not just open doors, she reminds me that I was meant to walk through them. Without her, I'm not sure I would have pursued research or even adolescent medicine. She saw something in me, nurtured it, and has always insisted that my voice, my questions, and my care for young people belongs in medicine. That kind of mentorship doesn't just change careers, it changes lives, including mine, and I am forever grateful to her. Next slide. So with the deepest amount of appreciation, admiration, and gratitude, and recognizing her profound and unwavering impact on the careers of so many, I am so thrilled that Marissa Raymond Flesch is receiving this distinction in mentoring.
totally choking up because like I didn't see those letters. Okay. Thank you, Sarah. I am going to be trying not to stand totally behind this podium. I'm a bit petite. So I'm going to be sharing a talk that I will call Mentoring, Lessons Learned, and Work to Come. And I want to say thank you to Sarah. Thank you to all of the people who put time and effort into those letters. I know that they take a lot of time to coordinate, to write, and sort of to pull together a story. And I really deeply appreciate that. And I am so glad that all of my mentees are in Honolulu doing their amazing work. I do a little bit wish I could be there with them, but I am also so honored to be here today. And I will say, I like the other award recipients today, was very touched when I got the call that I had received this award. I think that what came to mind initially was how lovely. That was my first thought. And then I was told that there would be an award ceremony, and I was, that sounds great. And then I was told there was going to be a 15 to 20-minute talk. And I mean, I'm a bit of an introvert to begin with, but I really drew a blank. This was hard for me. And it's because that's not where I belong in the mentoring that I do, right? That's where the people that I mentor belong, in that spotlight. And so I spent a lot of time meditating over the amazing growth and innovation and success that I've seen as a mentor with the people that I work with at every level in the educational pathway here at UCSF. And I thought about the stories that I have seen and the careers I've seen unfold. And then I also thought about the fact that those are not my stories to tell. And I hope that they will share those stories someday. That left me with not very much to work with. So I had to pause again. And I thought about it, and I realized that the story that is mine to tell is my own story of how I have been mentored. And so that's what I will focus on today. And I'm going to tell you some about the most influential mentor in my career. And we'll preface that with, there are so many wonderful ones, but for the sake of a good story, I will focus on one today. And I bet that many of you know her. I met Claire Brindis when I interviewed for fellowship at UCSF in 2011. She has won this and many other awards, including UCSF's Lifetime Achievement in Mentoring Award. And I don't think that the term fangirl was in wide use at that time, but as much as possible, I was like her total academic groupie before I ever set foot on this campus. Claire is a powerhouse in adolescent medicine research and health services research. And I remember, this is back before our field even used the match. So I had like multiple fellowship offers, and I was trying to figure out what to do. And my advisor at the time just looked at me and he said, "It really seems like you want to be Claire Brindis when you grow up. So you should get yourself out to San Francisco and learn from her." And that is literally how I decided where to go to fellowship, was on that advice. And it was incredibly good advice. And I came here, I landed in San Francisco, and I understood how academia worked. I expected that I was going to be incredibly grateful to work with one of Claire's postdocs and like get to wave at her at a meeting once a month or something. And maybe she would give me feedback on a paper or two. That's what I expected. But when I got to UCSF, I had such a different experience with her. And it was totally disarming to me how present she was as a mentor. This is a picture of her office that she had back when we had the Laurel Heights campus open. And the way that she had that office laid out, she didn't have a desk. She basically had like a living room. And you never sat across a table from her when you were meeting with her one-on-one. She sat next to you. At most, there was a coffee table where maybe there was some chocolate. I feel that's a really important part of mentoring that hasn't been emphasized yet. And she would really look you in the eye. I wish I had my own picture of her office. I had to borrow this one from the Chronicle, but that's how present her office was, right? Made it into the San Francisco Chronicle. And the very first day that I met with her in that office, I remember that she did this exercise with me that is still so vivid in my mind as a mentor today. She asked me to imagine my life 10 years from that moment and imagine my career, and asked, what is your day going to be like when you go to work? Like, tell me from the moment you step in the door, what are you going to be doing? What are you going to be working on? And we did this for an hour.
For an hour, she asked me to make it more vivid, to be more clear about what I wanted to be doing, to be more clear about who I wanted to be working with. And at the time, it felt absurd. Like the things that I was saying felt so far from my reach. But I do remember being really clear with her that I told her that I really want to work with communities. I really want to ask them what are their health problems and what are the things that they need from us as academicians. I remember telling her that, like, if I had a magic wand, I would be working with Latino communities like the one that I came from. And she pushed until that idea of what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be was so vivid that I still remember it to this day. I'm going to tell you about a few different stories like this related to my work with Claire and at different points in my career. And for each one, I'm going to summarize a couple of the things that I learned as a mentor in working with her. And at this early stage, at the beginning of my fellowship, I learned my first two mentoring lessons from Claire. And the first was just listen closely, right? She didn't talk during that meeting very much. She pulled things out of me. And the second was trust our mentees to know their own passions and their goals, right? There was nothing imposing. It was just a drawing out of. Now, Claire didn't have a project for me the moment that I landed, which of course is normal. But a couple months later, she emailed me and she said, I've got it. I've got exactly the project that you want to do. And I was shocked. She literally had exactly the project that I wanted to do. And she asked me to join her in a study that she had just gotten funded to study the health and healthcare access of young people with DACA. At the time, we were often calling them dreamers. And she had gotten some foundation funding, and we were going to travel all across California to do community engagement and focus groups to understand more about the health of these young people. It was at a really pivotal time in terms of health policy in California, where the state was starting to think about providing Medi-Cal to these patients. And it was just such an exciting project to be on. And Claire said, here, do the qualitative arm of the study. And I was like, I am a fellow. I don't think I know how to do that. And she said, of course you do. Go do the IRB. And it was such a fun and terrifying moment for me as a fellow, right? To be trusted with something that felt so huge, and to have her just fully put her faith in me. What a gift. And then the other gift that she gave me in this project is that as part of supporting me in this project, she did a huge amount of this travel with me. And it was this like amazing win to be flying to and from LA, to be driving to Sacramento in the East Bay with Claire. That meant I had hours of her time. And what she was interested in was really getting to know me. She really wanted to know what I wanted to do. It was an extension of that first conversation. And she was continuously thinking about who she can connect me with, what other projects I might get involved in. And she was also being deeply authentic and sharing her life with me. I got to know about her family. We exchanged our family stories related to really different Latino immigrant experiences. And she just showed up over and over and over, including authentically telling me about some of the challenges that she was having in her research, authentically telling me about what it was like to become a mother with a really high power academic career. And all of those things made space for me to show up more and more myself. So my lessons from that stage of my work with Claire were assume competence and provide support. This is incredibly useful to me as a mentor. It works really well, especially around a place as amazing as UCSF. And then she also taught me find common ground and acknowledge differences. And I think this is really key and one of the reasons that UCSF functions so well. We have such a diverse community, and I think we all are really interested in the ways that our lived experiences are similar and in the ways that they inform us and develop our careers differently. So I finished fellowship, I began the job search, and Claire was there for me again. As my fellowship wound down, I began trying to navigate all of the unwritten rules that are involved in applying for a job. I didn't know what I could ask for. I didn't know how negotiations worked. I had no idea. And Claire sat me down and said, here are some of the things that you need to know. Here's what I know about where you're applying. Here are the things that I can advise you that you can ask for. And here are the ways that I can directly support you because I'd like you to stay. right? And she also really showed up for me after I made that transition and began what sometimes felt like a joyful adventure and sometimes felt like a hike straight up a mountain in terms of doing research, right? There's some ways in which we're so lucky as researchers. I think of myself on good days, I think of my job as I can do absolutely anything in the world that I can convince someone to pay me to do research on, right? Anything. There's so much creativity and flexibility there. And the papers get rejected and the grant gets scored poorly. And there are the hard days when it just really feels like a slog up the mountain. And those are the days that Claire was there to reflect with me. So this is a picture I took in Alaska, and I just loved how clearly this pool was reflecting this beautiful mountain. And I feel like Claire was my pool, right? She wasn't climbing the mountain with me, but she was always there to remind me, actually, you used to be down here and look at where you are now. Actually, you've gained all of these skills. You're not in the same place you were the first time you submitted this grant, right? She was always there. And she also really helped normalize failure. I think one of the things that I realized in my mentorship with Claire is that I had gotten very far in my life without like really failing a lot. And I think that's pretty true for a lot of the people that I mentor. And she gave me a value that I bring forth in my own mentoring, which is failure is part of the process, right? If you're not getting papers rejected, it means you're probably not writing enough papers, right? This is just part of what we do and how we have to get used to the work. And I remember so vividly, she told me about how she didn't get her dissertation in on time. She told me about how hard she was on herself, and she wished and cultivated self-compassion in me so that I was more resilient as those failures that I had to deal with became part of my academic process. So here I would say that my lessons from Claire were share both your failures and your successes, and remember to teach the unwritten curriculum. So here I am now as a mid-career faculty member. And you know, the thing is, Claire's still on my speed dial. I still call her really regularly, especially when I'm faced with big decisions in my career, okay? One example of that is about 2 years ago, the field of adolescent medicine was just swamped with what is still the ongoing mental health crisis for youth in our country. And one of the things that we were really seeing is just a surge of incredibly medically ill patients with anorexia nervosa. And we were having patients die. We were having patients cycle in and out of the hospital and felt like we had nothing to offer them. And right about that time, I started to hear about the work of other amazing colleagues here at UCSF who are doing some really cool research with psychedelic medicines, with MDMA at the time, and since then with psilocybin. And I had this insane thought. I was like, could we do that? Like, could my patients benefit from that? This is crazy. I'm a pediatrician, right? What am I doing? And but I kept thinking about it, and I finally called Claire. I mean, literally like in the evening crying, like, I can't decide what I'm going to do with my career. Is this what I was hired to do? Is this totally insane? I'm a health services researcher. I've never run a clinical trial. Like, am I totally nuts? And Claire reminded me of a few really important things. She reminded me that science happens in teams. She said that you actually don't have to know how to do everything. You have to know who to collaborate with, and you have to know how to get your questions answered. And she talked me through what I was already thinking about. She said, I think you're headed in the right direction. You know who to collaborate with. There's really amazing people here doing this work. It sounds like you're going to get your questions answered. And then she also reminded me that I had a great idea and that no one else was probably going to do it, at least for a long time. And she said, it sounds like you have patients who are dying and you have to do this study. And it was just such a helpful way of her saying, again, follow your instincts, do what you know that you need to do. And we're now dosing patients in that trial. So my big lessons from Claire in this most recent phase of my academic career are encourage growth and allow room for change, right? Claire raised me to be a great health services researcher. And then when I said, I need to do this other thing, she said, of course you do. As I was preparing for this talk, I was really reflecting on the ways that Claire's mentoring brought gifts into my own work, but it was also, as I thought about that, impossible not to begin to sort of zoom out and think about many of the people in this room, other mentors and educators in the health sciences, and the world that we are trying to operate in today. We know that we're all experiencing really unprecedented challenges in research, in clinical funding, and the perception and the value of higher education. And these policy changes that are coming at us so fast are overwhelming us in their number, their complexity, and frankly, their structural violence. And I think that it's impossible to recognize that and not know that there are going to be some challenging years ahead of us. Of course there are. But I also know that we are bringing up an incredible generation of skilled scholars and healthcare providers, and we can teach them to communicate about the value of science, and we can teach them to work creatively to continue that tradition. So one of the things that I tell my own mentees, and that anyone that I've mentored in the last 4 years has heard me say over and over, is that we all must ask ourselves, what power and privilege do I have? And am I using it to the best of my abilities? In my own lab and around UCSF, I've seen mentors leveraging the resources that they have to protect their trainees, to help them continue towards their career goals. I've seen colleagues redoubling their efforts to communicate with the public about the value of science and the necessity of healthcare. I think our path forward will require the creativity and collaboration that UCSF faculty and trainees are famous for. And when I feel overwhelmed, I remind myself that we are not tackling these challenges alone. The scientists and clinicians that we're mentoring today will be our colleagues so soon. Thank you all so much for taking the time to listen. And of course, a deep thank you to Claire, to all of my other mentors, and to the amazing mentees that allow me to be part of their careers and lives. Thank you.
I'm thrilled to present you with this award from the Academic Senate, really honoring your outstanding achievement in mentoring. Congratulations. Okay, so the recipient of the Academic Senate Distinction in Mentoring Award in the full professor category is Dr. Lawrence Huang, professor of medicine in the Division of Pulmonary Critical Care, Allergy and Sleep Medicine, and in the Division of HIV and Infectious Disease and Global Medicine. His nominator is Dr. Katerina Vianova. She is a pulmonary and critical care physician and an ACGME ABMS fellow in the School of Medicine.
It is my pleasure and my privilege to introduce Dr. Lawrence Huang here today. Dr. Huang is a professor of medicine, as already heard, in the divisions of pulmonary and critical care, as well as HIV, IV, and global medicine. In addition, he is the chief of the HIV/AIDS chest clinic at the Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital, and a very prolific researcher. His research program is focused on understanding HIV-associated lung diseases, and he has 2 concomitant cohorts running in San Francisco and in Uganda since 1995 in San Francisco and 2007 in Uganda. Of course, Dr. Huang has an impressive track record, we wouldn't be here otherwise today, of getting his mentors to where they want to be. He's mentored over 100 trainees at all levels over the last 30 or so years. And this includes trainees at the high school level and going all the way to peer faculty. Among those, there are 15 fellows, including 14 pulmonary and critical care medicine fellows and 1 infectious diseases fellow. And among those, 4 are professors of medicine, 3 of whom are division chiefs, 3 are associate professors, 2 are assistant professors, and there's 1 fellow. With all of his trainees, Dr. Huang has published 81 peer-reviewed publications with the trainees as first authors, and this includes 38 unique mentees, and this is out of a total 240 peer-reviewed publications, so over a third. Dr. Huang's successful research program has served as a framework to jumpstart trainee careers, and there are many, many pictures, and I've limited myself to 5, of his mentees sharing some of their work using data from Dr. Huang's cohorts over the last few years at various conferences. And he also makes dreams come true. I'm going to call Dr. Matthew Dersenfeld. He's an assistant professor in the Division of Cardiology at San Francisco General and a mentee of Dr. Huang's. And I apologize for the long text, but I think it's worth the read. He says, Lawrence learned of my years-long interest in pursuing a career in global cardiology research. Rather than handing over some already collected data for secondary analysis or suggesting I write a pilot grant, he immediately said we need to visit Uganda first. That August, we traveled together to Kampala, Uganda, to develop a new collaboration and identify potential grant ideas. We did this all with the intention of making my dream of becoming a global cardiology researcher come true. He put our research interests and priorities above his own agenda. And in fact, this collaboration has paid off really well, because just a year after their initial trip to Uganda, Lawrence and Matt went back to celebrate with the local team the receipt of R1 funding to study this project. For the next few slides, I will also quote 2 mentees of Dr. Huang's, Dr. Luke Davis, who's an associate professor of medicine at Yale, and Dr. William Muludria, who is Dr. Huang's long-standing collaborator and partner over at the Mulago National Referral Hospital in Kampala, Uganda. Together, they say, his remarkable success as a mentor stems from the close, meaningful connections he fosters with his trainees and his dedication to integrating them into his extensive professional network. Anyone who has worked with Lawrence remembers his pride in introducing them as members of his research group at their first scientific conference. And this is us posing with the president of the American Thoracic Society that year, and with Lawrence's mentor, Phil Hopewell, that you'll hear some more about. The camaraderie of team dinners with multiple generations of mentees, celebrating their first publication with a victory dance cheered on by the team and the lab mascot Gopi, or in this case, with our personalized mascots. The thoughtful photos he sends commemorating key moments in their academic journeys. These unique gestures reflect Lawrence's unwavering commitment to their growth and success and their rare humanism. I think these examples already show you that Lawrence really treats his research team as a research family. And this is true both for the team in San Francisco as it is for the team in Kampala, which has worked with him for many years. Some of the members of the team have been with him for over a decade. Lawrence is a friend and a mentor for life. These are pictures that span 23 years with 2 of his earliest fellow mentees, Dr. Crothers and Dr. Morris, both of whom are currently division chiefs of different institutions. I will just read the last sentence of what Dr. Crothers says. I can truthfully say that I wouldn't be where I am now without his mentorship, and I think all of his mentees can for that. In addition to celebrating our professional successes, Lawrence makes a point of celebrating our important life events and our personal achievements. These 2 examples are of a wedding of a Ugandan team member with a big part of the US team coming to join them in the celebrations, and Lawrence holding the first one-month baby. And I will end with another quote from Dr. Davies and Dr. Muludria, who are especially eloquent, that I think also summarizes everything I've said so far. Lawrence's dedication to mentorship, reflected in his pride in both our achievements and those of our mentees, truly embodies the spirit of this award. He exemplifies the highest standards of mentoring, characterized by integrity, scientific excellence, professional expertise, and an unwavering commitment to the success of his trainees. Congratulations, Lawrence.
Wow. In the wrong direction. Thank you, Kat, for the lovely words. I'm deeply moved. Thank you also to the Academic Senate for this honor. It's really an award that I've received that has tremendous meaning to me because of the joy that I received from mentoring. And congratulations to the other awardees. I'm listening to your stories and they're truly inspiring and your words were so moving. And I'm like, uh-oh, hopefully mine are going to be halfway as good. So I'll start out with deep gratitude to my families, both my professional family as well as my work family. I feel so blessed to have all of you in my life. Gratitude to my mentees. As I said earlier, mentoring is among my greatest professional joys. I am so fortunate to have had so many mentees over the years. Special gratitude to my nominators, Katerina, who you just heard from, as well as Dr. Rebecca Abelman, who's in the back there, Dr. Matthew Dersenfeld, who's in the back there, as my current mentees. You already heard from Kat about Dr. Allison Morris, who was my first mentee starting in 1998, Christina Crothers, who was my second mentee starting in 2000. Then you already heard from Kat about Dr. Luke Davis and William Mordrea, along with Aditya Kadamanchi and Samuel Yu, who is a Korean pulmonologist working in Uganda. We started this Uganda cohort in 2007. Thanks to my HIV ID Gold Medicine Division Chief, Diane Havler, who has been my greatest supporter over my years. She's the one person I said who always believed in me and has been my tireless advocate. And then finally, thanks to Dr. Prescott Woodruff, who's the Division Chief of Pulmonary over at the Parnassus campus, who's been my friend for 25 years and is my current collaborator. So I was given these 5 questions to address, just like all the others. What do you see as the greatest challenge mentees and mentors will face in the next 5? And I crossed it out and made it 4 years. The prior speakers were much more eloquent than I can ever be. So I think I'm just going to leave that one alone because I think everybody in the room knows what the greatest challenge is right now. What opportunities do you see? So I completely understand those of you who are in the room who are pessimists and see your current situation or the global situation as the glass being half empty. I can imagine some of you in the room may feel like a surrealist, and this is a very surreal time that we're living in, and maybe something unprecedented in any of our lifetimes. And it feels very surreal. I'm a realist, and I like to be an optimist where the glass is half full. And I have some optimism that we will survive. And the optimism is based on who we are as individuals and who we are as a community at UCSF. We're going to find a way. Not exactly sure how it's going to be found, but we're going to find a way because, again, who we are as individuals and who we are as a university. I'm going to answer the rest of the questions by telling stories. Anybody who works with me and my family also know I like to tell stories. So I'm going to tell some stories, and I think those will illustrate some of the other questions and points. So perhaps the first lessons that I learned were from my parents. My dad, C.T. Huang, was an adult pulmonologist. My mom, Lena Lu Huang, was a pediatric cardiologist. They immigrated from Taiwan in 1960 and settled in Brooklyn, New York, where I was born. And the things that they taught me and my younger siblings, Andy and Cheryl, were the following. Family is most important. Do your best in everything that you do. And be well-rounded. This is what the young Lawrence internalized with those messages. Family is most important. I took that as take care of your younger brother and sister because you're the oldest. Do your best in everything that you do. My lab knows this motto, and so do my kids. Huangs don't get Bs. Be well-rounded, but then you're unlikely to be a Major League Baseball player. So think of something else. They always encouraged me as I got older that you can be anything you want to be, except for a Major League Baseball player. So find your passion and go after it. And as part of that, get the best education and training that you can. Make sure that you learn from your teachers as well as your classmates. So how did this lesson work out for us? I can't speak, well, how did this lesson work out for us? All 3 of us became doctors. All 3 of us actually went to Columbia University College of Physicians and Surgeons, so Columbia PNS is what it's called. My sister Cheryl is a plastic surgeon. My brother Andy is a pediatric urologist. So I can't speak for them, in terms of how they decided on their career choices. But as a scientist, I have a hypothesis that I'm testing about how I chose my career. This slide here, the slide on the left there, the gentleman at the far corner is Dr. S.P. Yang. He was an adult pulmonologist who was also the dean of the National Taiwan University Hospital and the School of Medicine in Taipei, Taiwan. And according to Google AI, he's well regarded as the father of thoracic medicine in Taiwan. My dad is the gentleman to the right of me. He was Dr. Yang's mentee and protege. And this picture here is one of our family heirlooms that was showed to me multiple times over my career, perhaps subtly influencing me into pulmonology. In support of my hypothesis, here you can see me on my birthday and my dad teaching me the proper technique to perform a peak flow measurement. Finding my passion. Well, in the summer of 1981, I turned 18 and I graduated from Paul D. Schreiber High School in Port Washington, New York, so the North Shore of Long Island. And I started college later that summer at Johns Hopkins University as a biology major / pre-med. So my team are laughing at these photos, I know. That tuxedo wasn't style in those days, believe me. But if you asked the 18-year-old me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would have said, I want to be a doctor and care for patients. But then I would also say, I want to do something important. And I couldn't really put a finger on what that was, but I had this sense that I wanted to do something important besides being a doctor. Well, many of you also know what else happened in the summer of 1981. It started in June of 81 with the CDC's MMWR report of 5 individuals developing pneumocystis pneumonia who were previously healthy without any known immunocompromise, whereas all the cases prior to that in the world were in immunocompromised individuals. That was rapidly followed at the end of the year by 2 back-to-back studies in the New England Journal of Medicine reporting on cases of pneumocystis pneumonia that heralded the onset of the AIDS epidemic that at its peak in the United States in the early to mid 1990s was the leading cause of death in 25 to 44-year-olds in the United States of America. And it was the leading cause of death in men and women in that demographic, and the leading cause of death in the most populous cities in the United States of America. So the disease was not limited to New York, San Francisco, Miami, Los Angeles, but many of the 100 most populous cities in the country. This was also leading cause of death in what's well regarded as the most important demographic of individuals, 25 to 44-year-old, peak reproductive age, peak working age. So that interest in HIV as an important disease of my generation, and at that time, PCP was king, led me to my interest in HIV-associated pulmonary disease and led my wife, Susan, who's in the audience, and I to move from Columbia, where I was very happy and had gone to medical school and did my residency, to UCSF for my fellowship in pulmonary and critical care. Getting the best education. I was a pulmonary fellow from 1992 to 1995 at UCSF, and I literally trained with the people who wrote the textbook of respiratory medicine. John Murray, Phil Hopewell, Courtney Broaddus. In 1995, I started as faculty at UCSF. I actually was hired by what was called at that time the AIDS program. So now it's the Division of HIV, Infectious Disease and Global Medicine. At the time, it was called the AIDS program. It was founded by Paul Wolverding, Connie Wofsy, and Donald Abrams. So 3 giants at UCSF. And my first job was I was the medical director for what at that time was called 5A, which was the San Francisco General Hospital Inpatient AIDS Unit. It's the first inpatient AIDS unit in the world, and I was the 3rd medical director. At heart, I'm a clinician and a teacher. I spent the first 8 years of my career as a full-time clinician educator, and I really loved the job. I also wanted to do research. And so in 2003, I pivoted and switched the focus of my career from being a clinician and a teacher to a physician scientist and a researcher. one of the things that I had the opportunity to do as a researcher was participate in this UCSF Clinical and Translational Science Institute, CTSI Mentor Development Program. UCSF has really been at the forefront of academic mentoring, and a large part of that goes to Dr. Mitchell Feldman, who was one of the co-founders of the CTSI MDP, along with Jeanette Brown. I was in the inaugural class of scholars to graduate from that program, and then I became an associate director for 7 years. I also had the opportunity at the beginning of my faculty time to be a founding member of the division's Clinical Research Scholars Committee. That's what we called it at that time. It was founded in 1995 when I started as faculty. I've had the pleasure of chairing this committee since 2011. And since 2012, I've been one of the principal investigators of our T32 training grant, which is one of the oldest and longest running training grants in the Lung Institute at the NHLBI. Currently, I'm working with Dean Shepard, David Earl, and Prescott Woodruff. We have a very tight-knit group that likes to celebrate across all divisional sites. I've also had the pleasure, starting in 2019, of being the co-director for faculty mentoring and sponsorship for the division, along with my partner in crime, Carolyn Colfie, who I've learned so much from about her support and advocacy for mentees, support for research, and just her general calm demeanor that counteracts some of my banging off the walls and screaming loudly. We work with Rupal Shah, who's the director of faculty experience, as well as Antonio Gomez, who's the director of diversity. And one of our fun events is the annual new faculty dinner, where we get to take the division's credit card and take the new faculty out to dinner. I've learned other lessons. One of the lessons that I've shared more recently is that I'm an old dog, I admit that, but I can learn new tricks. My son Peter is in the back of the room. When he was growing up, I would tell him and his brothers, when I was your age, the internet did not exist. So I verified that fact, and the World Wide Web became publicly released in 1993. So I was 30 years old then, okay? So when I was their age, the internet did not exist. I particularly like this cartoon because here you can see the old dog working on a computer. And this could be me in the hospital charting my ICU attending notes at 7 o'clock at night on Epic. In the old days, we used to write our notes. Now they're charted in Epic, right? Or it could be me this week saying, uh-oh, I got to give this talk, and going on to ChatGPT and saying, write me a talk for a distinguished mentoring award. All right? So I am an old dog, but I can learn new tricks. Another thing I learned is that mentoring is about building professional relationships and fostering community. And one of the things that I did when I was the assembly chair for the ATS MTPI assembly was lay the groundwork for our mentoring program, where every year at the scientific conference, a senior member of the ATS assembly meets with a younger member of the assembly to show them around and foster collaborations. I've had the profound pleasure during my time at UCSF with collaborating and learning from some of the best. I could go on for 10 slides, but I just chose a few representative examples. At a very early stage of my career, I had the ability to work on projects with Talmadge King, John Murray, Bob Wachter, and Diane Havler. And the experience of working with such successful, brilliant individuals was really transformative for a young faculty member. I had the distinct privilege of having Dr. Phil Hopewell as my primary research mentor as a fellow. He continued to be a colleague and collaborator of mine until he just retired last June after 50 years as faculty. So definitely above scale by a lot. And he illustrated many of the qualities that I try to emulate as a mentor in terms of being mentee-centered, really doing what he thought was best for me, never putting his own goals in front of mine. One of the things he taught me to do is to be bold and be brave, where normally I'm kind of quiet and shy. And that led me in 2012 to cold email Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn to see if she might be interested in a collaboration looking at HIV-associated individuals and the possible association of short telomere length with important lung diseases like COPD. Over the years, I've had the profound joy of being collaborators with my former mentees. So Allison Morris and Christina Crothers, they were fellow principal investigators in this NHLBI-wide lung HIV study. My version or my contribution to that lung HIV study was the International HIV-Associated Opportunistic Pneumonias, or IHOP study. And I got to work with really the people who are the who's who of pneumocystis pneumonia. People who wrote about the first cases of PCP before AIDS. Henry Mazur is there. He was the first author on one of those New England Journal of Medicine papers from December 1981. That cohort then became the foundation for a wonderful collaboration that spans well over a decade now with Sue Lynch, who's in the back of the room, where we first started as co-PIs of the lung microchip study, which was part of another NHLBI-wide consortium. More recently, I've been able to collaborate on the IAM Gold study. So you can see there's a theme with study acronyms here with Sue, Prescott Woodruff, and then Stephanie Christensen, who's also based at the Parnassus campus. And then I Am Old has morphed into the I Am Olda study, because I'm actually older, with Peter Hunt, as well as Joe Lynn, who's taken over Liz's lab in this building. I've also continued to switch my focus, and now I'm working on post-TB lung disease with Priscilla Hsu, Matt Dersenfeld, and Isaac Sinyabula, who are cardiologists. And I think Kat already showed a picture of the Halo and Shape research team is focused in Uganda. So here's another thing that I learned, which is to be flexible and open to new ideas. This is a slide from 2015 that I lightly modified, but this was actually a slide from a talk that I gave to our fellows one year about research. And this was my vision for my research career when I first started out in 1995. I was going to go from point A to B to C to D to E, retire. Actually, I wrote 2025 in this slide 10 years ago, so we'll see about that. But it was all going to be on HIV-associated pulmonary disease, because PCP was king, AIDS was king, and I was going to have uninterrupted NIH grant funding for the duration of my career on PCP. That obviously didn't happen. One of the things, though, that I think it brought out in me was my ability to see threads and then to tie those threads and weave a nice tapestry or tapestry. Okay? This is how my research career actually turned out. I started out by doing PCP. I went to Uganda thanks to Dr. Havlier, who, again, always believed in me and supported my first trip with Luke to go to Uganda and meet William. We started studying HIV-associated COPD, as I mentioned, and great thanks goes to Peter Hunt, who was my career mentee, as well as Mary Cooley, who was collaborating with Liz and Joe Lynn, who's also in the audience, and introduced us. And then I started working with Sue because I went to a talk that Janine Wiener-Kronisch gave on the lung microbiome in people with ARDS. And I said, what about HIV? She was like, that's a really interesting idea. Why don't we collaborate? And then Sue became my co-PI when Janine left to go to the East Coast and become dean, I guess, of anesthesia, something like that. So if you take out all those studies, this is sort of my career path. And I could add a G and an H over the next 10 years, but this illustrates the point. And it reminded me of a book that my colleague Henry Mazur gave me, which is titled, Who Moved My Cheese? And I've adapted that for a life of a physician scientist where I'm the mouse or the rat in the maze. The cheese is NIH research funding, and we're all on the hunt for that. And they keep on moving where they put the cheese. So we got to look around, and that's sort of the story of my career. I've had to move around, change topics, change collaborators. So probably the most important lessons I've learned come from two of the wisest people I know. One is Talmadge King, who at the time that I was coming up for promotion from assistant to associate professor and looking for a switch in series from HS Clinical to Clinical X, Phil recommended that I meet with Talmadge. Talmadge was the chair of medicine at San Francisco General at the time. And what he told me in his office was, Lawrence, take the time to celebrate your successes. And then he started laughing because I think there was like a ... And I kind of filled in the gaps, right? Because there are other times when you're not going to be successful. And then probably another important motto of ours came from my wife, Susan, who's here in the back. This was when our eldest son, Colin, was invited to 3 birthday parties at maybe 5 years old. He was like, 3 birthday parties on the same day in 3 different cities in the Bay Area. So I go to her, which one are we going to go to? And she's like, all of them. And I'm like, are you kidding? And she goes, nothing stands the way of FUN. I'm like, okay, you're the boss. So it has been a fun 30 years. Here are the 10 lessons that I've talked about. Find your passion, get the best education and training, learn from your teachers and teach yourself, learn from your peers, learn new tricks, learn from and build your community, collaborate with and learn from the best, be flexible and open to new ideas and weave your own tapestry. Take the time to celebrate your successes. Nothing stands in the way of FUN. Here's the lessons that Susan and I try to impart to our children. Family is most important. Take care of your brothers. We used to have a saying, brothers for life, when our kids were young. Do your best in everything that you do. This was something that my mom codified. Wongs don't get Bs. Be well-rounded, but you're unlikely to be a Major League Baseball player or a concert pianist. And so how they've internalized that is find your passion, learn from your teachers and classmates. And so how has it gone so far? It's my son Colin on the far side there. He graduated from UCSF Medical School in 2023. He's currently a second-year pediatric neurology resident at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, so CHOP. My middle son, Peter, is in the back there. He is part of the UC Berkeley UCSF Joint Medical Program. He'll be graduating next year. He's applying into internal medicine, and it's in a small aside. Peter already knows how to do spirometry and the maneuver for diffusing capacity for carbon monoxide taught by me, and he can interpret PFTs, so, And then our youngest son, Simon, is a first-year medical student at Columbia, my alma mater. So I'll conclude then with just a brief thanks to all the individuals who played such an important role in my career, my research and career mentors, my fellow mentees, all the people who worked on my research team, including residents who took a year off to do research with me, medical students at UCSF and elsewhere, my amazing CRCs, several of whom are in the room, one of whom came down from medical school today. I guess you didn't have class today, Jake. The statisticians who've been part of my research group, and then I've also had an endless series of wonderful college students who volunteered in my lab. These are my collaborators. Again, science is team science. Nobody can do it alone. And I've been very fortunate to collaborate with just an incredible number of individuals without whom I never could have even started half these projects, never mind conducted them. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate the award.
Award, Academic Senate for your outstanding achievement and mentoring.
Thank you so much, Mimi. She was my resident in the ICU. How many years ago was it?
20 years ago, and you could have won the award for teaching as well. I'm truly overwhelmed by having colleagues here at UCSF of this caliber in teaching and mentoring. I think they all deserve another round of applause. So I think we have a few moments for any questions, either from the audience or people on Zoom. And I think Liz is on Zoom to manage questions in the chat. Is there anyone here in the audience who might have a question? Is there anything in Zoom? Anyone in Zoom?
We don't have any Zoom questions at this time, but I have let them know they can put any in the Zoom Q&A.
Okay. Well, I'm not seeing any, so I guess this means we can go celebrate a little bit early. There is a reception that is following this, and we would love to have you all join us in the lobby. So thank you.